thank you, everybody. We just wanted to get started right away so that we can maximize the time that we have with our speakers today. My name's Marika. I'm one of the chapter leaders from the Vancouver+Acumen chapter. I've been with the chapter for about 4.5 years, so since we started, doing various things. But this year I'm super excited because I'll be co-chairing our annual event. It's called Dignity. And it's really to celebrate the interconnectedness of our community. We've been doing it for 4 years, and we've just loved how it's grown from something so small to something so massive that everyone looks forward to every year. So I want to tell you a bit of a story before we get started. So we're organizing our event, and of course the first thing that we have to do is secure a venue. We need people to show up to a place. So Sarah, my co-chair, and I, we walked into the Portside pub in Gastown, and we're expecting, look around, understand what the prices are, understand what the drinks are going to be, pretty standard stuff. We were greeted by Ash, who's the manager there, and he comes up to us and he's so excited, and he says, I am so excited for this event. What can we do to help you? How can we make this the best event ever? And I was like, whoa, this guy wants to work with us. This isn't just a venue. This is a partner. This is a collaborator. This is someone that we get to work with and spend time with. And he's someone who gets us and gets our community. And that's what I love about our chapter. That's what I love about having been involved and how great it's been to connect with our community. Our chapter does more than just this one event, but that's of course what I love the most because that's what I'm working on. But you can also connect with us. We have our salons that happen every other month where people come together, we share a meal at a local restaurant, and we discuss topics such as generosity or what it means to do good. And we discuss things in very open and safe environments and with a small group of people, and it's wonderful. So that's kind of how we've started and how we've grown. And our hope for today, for this event, is to share what's worked abroad in terms of connecting our ecosystems, but also to connect it to our local community, so what's working here in Vancouver. And we're looking forward to continuing to connect with other organizations that many of you represent in this room after this event. So that's my little spiel. And next, I'm going to introduce our moderator. So Sharon Duguid has spent the better part of her life observing how people face change and transition, identifying what gets in their way, and coming up with tools, processes, and some rather unorthodox approaches to help them get through with grace and success. And as such, she's taken the term executive coach to a whole new level. Sharon is an advisor, facilitator, and catalysta in the fields of strategic change, conflict management, succession, and personal development, and has spent over 20 years of experience working with senior executives and entrepreneurs. Her methods and experiences are as unique as her clients. She's stimulated positive outcomes that deliver measurable results through her creative and sometimes unorthodox approach. The integration of personal and organizational dynamics to create resolute change is a hallmark of Sharon's approach. I met Sharon very recently and knew instantly that she was someone that I wanted to continue to learn from. Apart from her professional successes, of which I've named a few, she's a warm and generous mentor who I'm grateful to know. So with that, I will pass the conversation to Sharon to introduce our two speakers, and please enjoy the evening or afternoon. Thank you.
When Marika asked me to do this, I was just giddy with excitement because I got to meet two people that I've admired from a distance for a long time, and feel like I'm in the company of people that are very grateful to be here with the two of you. So I'm going to be a little politically incorrect and do age before beauty and introduce Kevin first. It's okay?
That was really well done. Thank you.
So Kevin Royes. Kevin is the youngest of three boys, and he was raised in Toronto in challenging, subsidized housing, challenging environment by a single mother. So pretty classic story that we all know a lot about, and was a product in and out of the system, in and out of foster care and housing, and not potentially good opportunities for outcome. But now that I know him, I am not surprised he found the strength to turn it around at the age of 16, and thousands of people, I am sure, are very grateful that he did that. Kevin got involved in Junior Achievement, an after-school business program, and from the age of 17 has been a true going concern with ideas and actions. It's been about 30 years since then, Kevin, I don't want to date you. He's launched 6 significant businesses, big businesses globally, entrepreneurial initiatives that have had numerous, and also has done numerous programs that are engaging youth entrepreneurs. So his background is incredible. He's got products on the shelves of Home Depot and Canadian Tire. He has a client list that reads like the who's who of business: Nike, CBC, The Matrix, Toyota. And for those of you who like a little aesthetic with your product, he has products selling in MoMA in New York. I like that part of it. And his products are also a beautiful shade of pink for those of you who are interested in the pink products. His innovation, which I thought was incredible, which has launched much of his career, is what I think of as a Swiss Army knife on steroids, and something that I think every person in this room should own one, and he didn't pay me to say that. The Kelvin has landed Kevin on the Dragon's Den, which was considered one of the most successful products, businesses, and shows in the history of the Dragon's Den. And as such, he now has a close investment relationship with one of those dragons that expands beyond that product. And Kevin, being who Kevin is, took that opportunity on Dragon's Den to create another entrepreneurship opportunity, and he is now the roving reporter for Dragon's Den, interviewing past participants and their pitches and to see where their businesses are. So he sees an opportunity, and man, does he take it. Kevin, from the get-go, has seen a socially conscious free market as the most powerful tool for changing our communities and our lives. His approach is what he calls Soulcial-Preneurship, S-O-U-L. Soul for our heart, social for our community, and preneurship is the free market with entrepreneurs. When I met Kevin last week, I was spellbound by his ideas. Our hour quickly turned into about 2.5, and even then I did not want to leave. His ideas about rebuilding and actually I would say reinventing and recreating cities that are in serious distress, i.e. like Detroit. He wants to recreate them from the ground up with the people who are born and raised there, who have been subjected to financial ruin. He has an approach to what I would call social industrialism that is unique and I think brilliant. I hope you get a chance to hear more about it later. Thank goodness, Kevin, that you opted for business and not drugs. And I think we're all going to be far better off for your contribution.
Wow, thank you for that. You got all that from our coffee? You said you got all that from our coffee? That was great.
Oh, the notes are, I've got more. I can sell them offline later. Jacqueline Novogratz, Acumen CEO amongst many, many other titles. As with many of you in the social entrepreneurship circles, I'm sure that you've known or heard about Jacqueline for years. Many of us know her from her incredibly passionate TED Talks. But I actually have heard about her, and many of you also know, from many other circles. She's known for her dogmatic presence, her obsessive attention to detail, and what I think are the really important details, the details that affect the people on the ground, the farmer, the shopkeeper, the school teacher. She's known for her clear and collaborative approach with everybody that she works with. But what I think really sets her apart, though, and puts her in the ranks of the Jane Goodalls, the Anita Roddicks, Ben Zarbuto, is her paradigm-shifting beliefs and actions in what's possible when we marry the world of finance, venture capital, philanthropy, poverty, and entrepreneurship. Every single one of those worlds is very challenging to begin with. To marry them is almost inhuman. I'm sure she's come across many naysayers, and I'm sure especially in the world of finance, you've met with many skeptical executives who did not believe what you were setting out to do was possible. But as you know, you're succeeding with a vengeance. As the oldest of 7, she was clearly led the charge of achieving great things in her family and in her lifetime. She took very early interest in poverty at the age of 4 when her father was serving in Korea. And her brother likens her to an overachieving Marsha Brady. Now, some of you may not actually know who that is, but you can check with us.
Back to the age of beauty thing.
Back in the age of TV. Back in the age of the sitcom and TV. He said she's always worked on the right projects, the good projects, and she was hell-bent on changing people's mind about the world at a very young age. Her story, in researching her and her journey, they're nothing short of incredulous. Serendipity, crazy synergies, and more hard work than I think any of us in the room could comprehend. She's created more momentum in the world of impact investing than I'm sure even Muhammad Yunus would have thought possible. Acumen, just over 10 years it's been around, it holds over $88 million in assets, and while some investments may have not been a home run, the overall impact continues to be profound. There's so much press about Jacqueline that I don't want to go on. I would rather use the time for Q&A and discussion. So go online and spend a few afternoons or days being very motivated. But what I personally take is that your drive is nothing short of a force of nature, and the world is blessed that you arrived. So anything we can glean from your story will be helpful for us. So.
Thank you very much for that.
Pleasure. So we're here to talk about impact investing in social enterprise, the role of youth and millennials in change, and the role of Acumen and Acumen chapters, much like the one we have here in Vancouver, which is highly motivated to be a part of that change. And so jumping right in, what I'd like to ask both of you, dialogue questions challenge each other, is in your day-to-day mission, when you get up every day, not in the big picture of what you're trying to achieve, but the day-to-day, what is the most compelling issue that you're facing? What are the barriers, the opportunities, oversights, things that you see as the potentials that have to be addressed sooner rather than later?
You first.
Yeah, like what to be addressed. I'm careful with that, because we have to be careful when we're looking at a tree with some diseased leaves, for example. Our tendency is to go to the leaves and try and fix the leaves. But I think what's kind of important is to take steps back to go, where is this coming from? Where in the root system could this be coming from? And I think that's one thing, is how far back are we stepping to look at a change that we make here that can have the most amount of effect out there. So I'm constantly driven by this idea of biggest amount of change with the least amount of effort. Right? Which means just looking at things from a broader and broader perspective. I don't know if that answers it exactly.
I'm going to ask you a question about that in a minute. But.
Well, thank you. And first of all, I just want to say thanks to all of you guys and the chapter leaders of Vancouver. I'm just blown away by all of you. And just want to say that nobody does anything by themselves. And so it's really, I'm here with board members, advisors, team members. And so part of what gets me up in the morning is thinking about this ecosystem that we're building. When we started Acumen, we were really looking at changing the way the world did philanthropy. We wanted to revolutionize it. And then over time it became, now there's this impact sector, and it's in a very chaotic moment. And as you know, finance isn't enough. So how do we start to build a talent force? And that led to fellows, and then chapters, and then online learning. And at the heart of it is, how do you navigate these complex and interlinking systems? And I loved what you said before, the worlds of finance and venture capital and philanthropists and the very poorest people on the planet, in a way that moves from respect for everybody. And that can really tear at you in lots of different ways. And so how do you keep that core so that everybody can see where they might have a place to play in this growing ecosystem? I would say that's what.
Well, a question then for both of you in that. So Kevin, you said, we've got to look at the roots, but how do you stop in your day and take that assessment in? How do you know how to go there rather than being distracted by leaves? And similar to Jacqueline, then it's how do you stop and say, right here, right now, this is how I can work that interconnection? I guess it's in the day-to-day, I think, how do we figure out the right step consciously and quickly in our actions? So
I think there's this book that I'm reading right now called Mastery, and what I like about it is that it says there's a period of apprenticeship before we start to settle in, and things really start to make sense, and we really start to see the bigger picture. But if we can appreciate that stage of apprenticeship, that we're going to be making mistakes, that I'm going to have a business that I'm going to learn from, and that's just going to be part of it, and it might fail. And that's okay, because that's part of becoming an apprentice. And so we have to get in the game, and we have to start taking some action, start somewhere. But when we're looking at the roots, to me, as I look at the millennial generation, those roots are already changing. Mm-hmm. This is already more of a we generation, already more of a caring generation. So I think part of what we're doing maybe is watering things more, bringing, helping all this grow more. But I feel good seeing that it's already sort of on the move, this conversation, and it's going to be coming through youth. By 2025, millennials will be like 75% of the workforce. That's pretty impressive. That's a good future to look forward to.
Right.
But it's hard though, it's like charity I think sometimes gets caught with looking at the leaves. Oh, this part of the tree is not good. We have to fix that. We have to fix this. We have to fix that. It's very quick and feels good for the person doing the giving, but isn't actually making the change, as you know, that you really want to see, which has to come from people. It's got to come from in here. You can't give people things and expect that's going to build the character from within them, where they want to see their own change, where they're driving towards their own version of hope. And so if we can support that with people, we're supporting people growing, as equals, all of us together. We're all in this together.
Which is much like what you were saying, it's the people around you and the forces coming together. But how do you instill in them, they're going to go with their own version of your vision. On a day-to-day, how do you approach, the naysayers or the challenging people who are, not wanting to relinquish donations or the, policy people? I mean, how do you move in a day-to-day to really keep your momentum going?
It's hard to generalize, and I think what I'm hearing Kevin say, which I agree with, that we say a lot at Acumen, which is to start and let the work teach you, that it's too easy to wait until everything's set up perfectly before you try to move. And what we recognize is that each of these companies can be really complicated, and things do come in the way. So at the beginning, things actually look big, but they are also easier. So when 4 guys came in and they said they wanted to change the ambulance industry in India, we thought they were crazy, but it was such a big, broken, corrupt, bloated industry that why not give them a try? So in some ways it was easy. It was figuring out what part of the company, we bought 30% of the company. They had 9 ambulances. People said we were crazy, and it kind of invigorated me. Yeah, they are crazy. That's why they have a chance. Well, over time, though, very quickly, we saw what it would mean for a tiny, no-name, ethical, entrepreneurial organization to try to navigate this morass. And so the first thing that happens is they can't get a number, 111-999, without paying a bribe, so they get 1298. It's a really dumb number. So you have to create a marketing campaign around it. So it's like, all right, well, let's create the marketing campaign around it. Well, now that this company is the second largest company in ambulance company in Asia, and it serves 5 states, there's a whole new set of issues. Talent issues. How do you inspire 6,000 workers who make $2-3 a day and are drivers? Ethical issues, policy issues. And yet the company's ready to take them on because they've learned from all these other pieces. So I think if you're entrepreneurs, it's hard to wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to anticipate all these things that are going to happen to me. But the standing on people's shoulders, the learning from it, and the willingness to move from a place of moral authority, which I think really helps in that grounding, but a fearlessness to take this on, sometimes with soft power and sometimes by playing hardball, and not being afraid of either side is the path that starts to unfold for you.
Right. Have you learned to just trust your intuition, whether it's hardball or softer in the moment? You just go with what comes out.
Well, for better and for worse.
I was wondering where you were going to go with that.
Exactly.
I think if you're an entrepreneur, you are an intuitive person.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think for sure, like, you learn more and more to just, to trust that, like, I don't know, for me, I just more and more trust that the clear version of me is going to come through. Like, there's only so much you can prepare. And I think with entrepreneurialism, which is a word I don't like at all, but you have to be a problem solver. And so it almost doesn't matter, if you're a determined problem solver, it almost doesn't matter what it is. It's like, you're going to figure it out. You know, like, I'm in Taiwan and I just went to visit the factory and found out that this mechanism wasn't going to work. And on the airplane back, and then I had to go to the factory the next day, my mind just loves working on that stuff. And then by the next morning I went back and I go, what about this? And I can't draw very well, and he looks at it, he's like, oh, yeah, that might work. And by the end of the week we had a new solution. So I just, in my mind, it's like, it doesn't matter, it's a problem.
It's an opportunity.
And it's opportunity. Being crazy helps, for sure, because what all crazy means is that we don't look straight along inside the lines, right? We're looking more for how to get something done, not by what the rules are that say to get that done. We're more determined by the outcome.
I also think that that intuition as you get older comes, at least partially, from pattern recognition. And so while 70% of the workforce may be millennial, there is a role for older people and experience.
Good news.
Good news. No, and because I think that there is this wisdom that comes with the pattern recognition. A young person on our team made an investment, Stuart's the only one that will remember this, but in a water company in India. And there was all this excitement based on the spreadsheets and the idea and all this stuff, and we went to go visit them, and we walked out of the bus. It was like 110 degrees, and the cameras came to us, and I was garlanded with flowers, and there was a big Acumen sign, and I turned to the young person, and I was like, we might as well just write this off today. You know, it's just this is a classic 1980s NGO move, masquerading as a commercial entity. And, you know, sure enough, we didn't just write it off. We waited like 2 years, and then we wrote it off. You get used to seeing, but you don't even really know why, except you've seen so many things happen that.
Hindsight. So that's good news for the millennials. You'll have to wait for a few years before you start seeing the pattern recognition.
Well, it's why millennials are so powerful and youth is so powerful, because you don't have all those naysaying
and you
things.
don't have the
you just go and try it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's that marriage that's so powerful.
Absolutely. So I'm compelled to ask a question that I didn't, give you any heads up for, so sorry about that. But what is the ballsiest move you've ever done where you're thinking, I could really, this could destroy it all or change it all? Is there one thing in your past where you're going, oh man, I cannot believe I did that and survived? Got one of those stories for us?
I have a lot of, I can't believe I did that and survived moments, but in 2006, we were I don't think we'd ever raised, more than $1 or $2 million in a year, and it just, we were patient capital, but we were really impatient people, and the economy was heating up, and I just thought we needed to take it to another level. And so, having never done a capital campaign or anything, said that we were going to run a 2-year capital campaign and we were going to raise $100 million. And the team was like, oh my God. Hired a guy, and on his first day I told him this, and he went home with a migraine, literally. And pretty much lost a board member over the feeling of irresponsibility that you shouldn't announce a capital campaign unless you've already raised 30% of it, which was much more than we'd ever raised in our entire existence. But we had a vision, and we felt it was really important, and we didn't get to the whole 100, but we got really close, like over 90. And then in 2008, the market crashed. And I don't think we could do it today. But it was the right time, the right moment, the right level of passion, the right number of believers who helped us out. And at the end of that 2-year period, a person on my team said, you know what I really learned from this is that sometimes when you say the impossible out loud, enough times that you start to believe it, it really can happen. And I think about that a lot. You know, are we getting less gutsy as we get bigger? And how do you stay gutsy?
Wow, that's good, yeah.
I love that from a few different perspectives, but one is just like, how big is our thinking? You know, I mean, are we going to raise 10 million or 100 million? It's just a thought. And I just love this possibility that we can think our way into awesomeness. You didn't have to have that thought. If you didn't, you might have raised 10 million in those 2 years. But having audacious thoughts, I think, is great. And it's also infectious. It's more fun to think about. It's like, oh, can we actually do that? So thinking big is, you know.
But there's also a balance. So after 9/11, we decided to go to Pakistan. I had never been to Pakistan. And in fact, literally at some point, it was like, first we were going to go into the Muslim world, and I was like, does anyone know where the Muslim world is? You know, it was kind of an irresponsible, at some level, it was reckless. On the other hand, we were small enough to take a risk like that, and it changed us as an organization, and it's now one of the most important places that we work.
Right.
But now it would be totally irresponsible to the team, to the funders, to everybody else if we said, here's a great place, let's just go there. So I think at different stages, there's also the crazy move.
The audacious move, yeah.
The audacious, and at other stages, that would be a reckless move. And so learning how to balance that gets really important.
And I think it depends on the momentum of the people around you. If enough people buy into the audaciousness and the opportunity, you know, but if you've got half the people saying no and half the people saying yes, there's a more measured response. I think that's part of that.
Yeah, and there's a dance, right? Like there's a dance with the people on the other side. So there's this thought, and then that has to dance with society. And so, you know, there's two examples where, like your timing was really well. It was really good, and you look at, and you go, okay, I couldn't have done that today. But the point is that you did it when you did it. That's what came through you at that time. And maybe, you know, you mentioned the serendipity. I think when we're like, I find for myself, when I'm more committed and fully on this path, serendipity is definitely one way to look at the world. Like just keep watching the world. It's like if anyone's read Celestine Prophecy, you know, it's like a person comes into your life, and I'm always curious, you know. If I get an injury, I'm curious, who was I around at the time of the injury? Or like I just start to look at the world this way to try and move with the world. Because as creators of things, we get to create them, but it's nothing if we're not creating them to mesh with people and to change lives, right?
You know, it's interesting you say that, Kevin, because when I met you last week and we were talking, one of the things I found really profound about you, you said at the end of the day, I just need to get my head down and create. So your community is really important and the movement of people around you, but at the end of the day, you're like really that solopreneur to create something to then put out in the world. And Acumen is more about getting the right teams and the right boards with with you at the front leading that pack. And it's an interesting dichotomy to have both of you, you know, creating lots of opportunity outside, but with different self-motivation. So, you know, that struck me that you really like to be alone in your thoughts about creating and building.
I've tried to lead people, and that hasn't shown up in my life to work for me. I'm more of a, you know, with Calvin Tools, I tried to have like a full-on company and salespeople and manage things, and it was a disaster. So it's, you know, one of the things I've learned is focus on my strengths. And if we all do that, like you don't have a quarterback throw the ball and then run out there and catch it. If everyone focuses on their strengths, everyone will be happier. We can start to assemble teams where everyone is happy doing what they're doing. They're doing that because that's what gets them up in the morning.
So Kevin, do you see yourself as a designer? You said you didn't like the word entrepreneur. What do you see yourself as?
I'm a creator that wants to play in the world. And I see myself as being a creator.
Which is a really important...
Yeah, it's not limited. Like it's a tool. Like I'm glad that I did the tool, but the tool is just a product, and then there's like profit or whatever behind that. But as a creator, you go, okay, well, where can I aim this strength, I guess, or what drives me. Where can I aim it for the biggest impact?
But you're a storyteller too, then.
I'm going to learn to be, because as I'm
You're
doing,
a good storyteller. Take it from me.
yeah, well, I'll hone that a bit more, because I do want to tell more stories, and I want to see more youth coming up and seeing, wow, this is possible. You know, I'm just starting to do talks at schools, and I'm going right now to the at-risk youth, the rule breakers already, right? And the results of it have been great. And so it's like when you start to do your work, and then you see bright eyes on the other side, and you feel your own heart going like this, it's like, that's a clue. This is where I need to keep going. So as you say, the work teaches you, right? You have to get in and start going and be led by that.
Nice. Wow, you guys are great. Wow. Okay, harder question. So many social issues facing us. The complexity of issues goes from, people abusing animals to, female infanticide and every gravitas in between. How do you, curious for Acumen and also personally, Kevin, how do you choose and make decisions on where your impact holds?
I think I don't see the world that way in terms of my impact, to be honest. For Acumen, it's more a question, we invest in companies, leaders, and the spread of ideas. And on the company side, we look for entrepreneurs that are trying to solve basic services solutions: health, water, housing, energy, agriculture. So our team is constantly looking for entrepreneurs that are bringing ideas that we believe can scale and reach a million people, has the right entrepreneur with the right ethics, and will become profitable over time. And if those three beliefs can stand up, Acumen will support them. On the leadership side, we are deliberately creating very diverse cohorts of leaders, trying to give them the skills and the tools and the moral imagination to fulfill their great potential so that they can help others. And so it's really about building that platform for them. And on the ideas side, it's then from all of that, what can we share with the world in this collaborative economy in which we live? And so our success is only meaningful when we see others succeed. And what's so exciting about your generation, about the millennials, is that it's not just about markets like they used to work. There really is the sharing economy going on. And it's not just the rich that are sharing. It's starting to transcend the whole economic spectrum. And that feels to me like the huge opportunity that you all have to start redefining and recreating what's possible, so that I look at even what our chapters are doing, and it just blows me away that we've got the Vancouver chapter doing case studies with 150 college and MBA students that may teach Acumen what we should be doing, and then we could put it online. In Saudi Arabia, our chapter took my book and got it translated into Arabic and is now getting it published. We're starting to learn from the companies. I was so blown away that you have in the Kelvin, you should show everybody what this tool looks like. But they have a tool, and inside the box is a note about the person who made the tool, so that you have a connection.
It's coming.
That's an upcoming project that I'm thinking to do. So
You're not doing it yet?
No.
But I have one. I could sell it for you.
That's part of That's part of rebuilding.
He's got this really cool thing that he's about to do.
He's got to do it now.
No, you gotta do it now.
I just went from 97 to 98% closer to doing it.
But we've got a young fellow in Pakistan who runs Hometown Shoes, and his dream is to be the Zappos of Pakistan. And when one of the 500 craftsmen in Lahore, outside of Lahore, crafts your shoes, and you get it in a box, there's a personal letter. And Waqas never went to college. These guys are mostly illiterate, but you have this connection across the world that's possible now. That was just never possible in my generation growing up. And so I think for me, it's not what's my individual impact, it's are we building a world where people can give more?
Yeah, I think at a certain point, maybe it clicks. In the beginning, maybe you're like, this is me putting in the hard work, but at a certain point, you can't turn back. At a certain point, you just see it's not fair that we are here just because we were born here, and somebody just because where they were born, they're going to be impoverished for the rest of their life, but they have no opportunity to get out of that. Life doesn't have to be fair, and it definitely isn't, but we can make it more fair, I think, and we're seeing, we just care more and more. When I see the microfinance, what Muhammad Yunus has done and Kiva, it blows me away that people are just, all around the world, if you go on Kiva and just see someone from Norway or Australia doing these microloans to make no money back on it, just to create change. And it's a people to people. One of the things that I'm noticing right now is this is a people to people time. Institutions and big institutions are moving very slowly, and people are creating so much change outside of it. I know you're an optimist. I'm an optimist as well. There's so much darkness to look at, but we are moving in the right direction. People are caring way more where stuff is coming from. And I think part of our job as creators is to really consider how we're connecting with the people in the world that are spending their money. Because again, it doesn't matter what the initiative is. If we don't connect with why a person buys something in the first place, if we're so focused on solving a water problem or an environmental problem, that we miss that essential connection to the people buying stuff.
Purchasing power, decision in the purchasing.
That is so much of where the power is. It's really the people spending their money is going to change things, and then we as creators keep figuring out, well, what do you need? What's going to make your life easier? That is also ethical and conscious and is creating this change and is changing that one life right there. Tom's has shown me anyway that this idea of one-to-one, you do this and there's a human being on the other side, that sense that there's a human being there, it's not vague. It's pretty clear for people, and I think that's part of why they've been successful. They tapped into something.
I want to challenge a little bit.
I'm not a total Tom's advocate.
No, not about Tom's. Because I just keep thinking about the chapter and the millennials. Because on the one hand, I feel like this is the most exciting time in the world to be alive, and I wish I were at least 20 years younger, just to have to be coming of age in this moment. I actually think there's a risk that with so much wealth being concentrated in one tiny pinprick of a corner, we're actually at risk of losing empathy. And I don't know if we're only going to get it through this one-to-one relationship. And so I think we have an opportunity, and you all have opportunities as social entrepreneurs, to be thinking about those kinds of solutions that, one, really humanize low-income people. We see great innovation happening for the next coolest app. And then we see those apps, being sold for multiples. We're not seeing the kind of innovation that we need to get water to the very poor, even in this country. And so the more we can somehow make that sexy and celebrate entrepreneurs that are using that innovation to make change, and I think about this a lot,
How do we do that? How do we make people understand, it might not be so sexy getting water to the very poor or food to, many of our nation's children's, et cetera.
Well, I think, in some ways it comes, to our manifesto, and this idea that there is another metric for success, and that it's not just the one who has the most money wins, that it's, how much are you giving, how much dignity are you giving, how much Are you enabling others to gain a sense of success? Kevin reminds me of one of our fellows, Benji Williams, who is African-American, only birth child of 9 kids from South Central LA, was a fellow, then went to Stanford Business School, went back to Pakistan where he'd been placed to try to create vocational education. And a vocational education company and nonprofit. All these people are helping him succeed. If he succeeds, we should make him a hero. And frankly, even if he doesn't succeed, he's already a hero.
Right.
But we need to do a better job of finding the storytellers that are make those stories interesting. And I think it's where you guys can use social media effectively as well. Because we know that people want to see more than cat videos on YouTube.
Except for the cat lovers. Yes.
Except for the cat, with all respect. But when I talk to the big media, they say, we love what you guys are doing, but the truth is, if we put global on, readership goes down, or viewership goes down. Too much do-gooder, viewership goes down. So how do we find ways to tap into telling stories? And frankly, how do we can we start being more transparent about philanthropy as well and ask the hard questions? Could we be doing a better job?
Well, in that, so one of the questions I have for you guys is in terms of best practice, what do you see? There's all kinds of historic stories that, have global smoke bombs around them, people donating tractors to different countries but no mechanical education, or, even Tom's has come under lots of scrutiny with what it's taken from cultures versus what it's given. And how do you start recognizing best practice and reinforcing it? So, what I think is there's a status quo, an MO that needs to be happening in all kinds, so that when your guy goes to create this educational program, that's seen as best business practice locally by the governments, by the chambers of commerce, et cetera. But how do we start recognizing them and start almost, making them, what's the word I'm looking for, just, if you do this, it's more than likely you'll have a successful business. How do we start standardizing, I guess?
There's, to become an entrepreneur right now, it's so difficult. There's no real, I think it's the people, as I say, that are a little bit crazy, that aren't as afraid to take risks. But it's hard to become an entrepreneur right now. There's not a lot of training for it. And so the people that are doing it, there's a lot of failure, and even those of us that have done it before and are mentoring, we're still seeing there's many elements to making it. But I mean, if we see kind of, like, I'm a fan of looking at things over time so that it makes me kind of breathe a little bit easier in the immediate moment. And over time, I think we're definitely doing better. We're heading in the right direction. More and more, one of the things I was very encouraged to see, Deloitte Touche just released a millennial survey in January. And one of the things I thought was so exciting was that about 70% of millennials see themselves working independently in the future. 70% of, and 50% in developed countries, 80% in developing countries. So where the economy is just booming, people are just already seeing themselves as being independent workers, and more people are caring about the world. So what does that mean? I mean, these entrepreneurs are coming up right now. They're ready to go. Mayron is a young man right there that I've had coffee with, and he's a great example to me. He's ready to bust out, just like where and how exactly. So to me, this revolution is, it's...
So there's not a lot of, pre-qualified, do these 3 steps.
No, it's like you want to be in the game and be very fluid to the game. Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I do think that we could use storytelling and media more effectively. So, because I think I underestimated how one company could change an industry. With this same ambulance company, they really are trying to build ethics throughout the company. And in Bhubaneswar, which is in the Orissa, the 3rd poorest state in India, one of the drivers saw a wallet with 20,000 rupees, or about $300, on the side of the road, and took it to hospital because he didn't trust anyone to hold this until the patient had come out of the operating room, and then delivered the money to this guy. And the company was smart enough to get that story in the newspaper, and the government then appreciated this guy, and so the guy's a local hero. And what's happening is you're seeing this real sense of pride in doing business differently. And when you talk to people now, for the first time ever, probably in the history of this state, not only do they have the expectation that an ambulance will come to them, but that bribes aren't part of the conversation. That's
really
one
gutsy.
customer.
Yeah, and
One company. So we've got to,
And massive pressure to do it differently, but standing up to the pressure. We're doing it differently.
What a place to try and do that work too. To
Crazy.
because like in this culture over here, there's been so much social and community development.
We still face it. In Quebec, there's been huge bribery
Yeah.
issues and development and government.
Yeah, I'm amazed that the level of the work that's being done, there in Pakistan, and that ethics is coming in. Like, it's pretty early in their development cycle to have ethics come in, which is great. Like, one of the great stats I heard was China and India have brought more people out of poverty in the last 10 years than all of charity has done in 100 years through economic boom. Now, it hasn't been ethical entrepreneurship, hence the pollution and so forth. But if we're talking about ending poverty, there's a clear example that the economy can do that if we foster the space for entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs will just show up if the economy is explosive.
Well, and I think, to Jacqueline's point, if there's stories about how those entrepreneurs are showing up
The
differently,
marketing-
so that it impacts their neighbors and impacts their communities to do it.
Yeah, we have
Ethical
to market. Like, it's people respond to marketing, and so
That's
the more
using
good
social
stories.
media. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting close on time here, and I do have one or two questions I want to make sure we get. And this is, I put this out because if I was sitting in the audience, this is what I'd want to know. So this is all about me right now. And even though I'm not this age, I still want to know the answer. If you were 24 years old, what's one thing you would do differently, or wish you had done, or would go back in time and do again? One thing that, if they're the 24-year-olds, the millennials sitting in the audience, what's it?
I wouldn't do anything differently.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes, and but you know what? My naive exuberance at times has, because I didn't know I couldn't do things. Yeah, I wouldn't do anything differently. I get to sit beside Jacqueline right now. I mean, if I did
Got
anything
here
differently, this
somehow.
would
All points lead to here, for
Yeah.
sure.
I grew up in a family that, what didn't kill you made you strong, was kind of the ethic. And I wasn't 24, but when I was 25, I left my career on Wall Street and I moved to the Ivory Coast. And it almost killed me. And not just literally, but it really ripped at my spirit and took out confidence on a whole lot of levels. And I'm not asked this question very often, so I don't talk about it very often, but I don't think that that's a very wise saying. There's truth to what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but there's also sometimes you allow yourself to be in really bad situations for too long because you just want to show how strong you are. And it can take you a long time to recover from that. So sometimes when the world is just shredding you, you should take a moment and step back and say, is this helping me help the world in the way that I would like to? And it might just be, look, this is a really rough patch and I'm going to get through it. But it might be you start to feel yourself getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And that takes a long time to reverse. So I think I wish I would have earlier on said, enough, I'm done, and moved to the next life experience.
This would be a much bigger conversation, but I can't help but wonder if a lot of women can identify with that comment. You know, women,
I bet
wonder.
young women and young men can, because
Yeah.
particularly if you're raised to please and to succeed in a way that is about the world looking at you, it's really hard sometimes, this goes back to intuition and young and old, to look inside yourself and say, this really doesn't feel good, but is that my own narcissism? Is that my own insecurity? You know, you don't really know what's speaking instead of just like, that is that little voice inside of you saying, get out. And sometimes you gotta listen to it.
I love that. Right. So one quick comment or a piece of advice, the local Vancouver chapter of Acumen, the Canadian chapters, what would you like to see them take hold of and run with to go forward, to help support you, Kevin? What are some things these people can be grabbing onto and running with?
Yeah, I agree with Jacqueline. I mean, so much about any of the work being done is how it's communicated and communicating in a way that it connects in with people, right? So the fact that there's Jeremy's here filming and there's like quality audio, that this will be able to connect in with people. But I think more events, I think we need to spark more. A lot of people are already thinking about being entrepreneurs. I get that. I guess Dragon's Den and Shark's Tank has kind of been great marketing for, it's like you see that guy on TV and you're like, huh? I could do that for sure. You know, I could be up there. So it's been great marketing for entrepreneurialism in general, I would say. And I think, yeah, like more events and salons, but we need to see more people taking action too, and sort of supporting people to just go out and take some kind of action. I think we get frozen. We need to help people take action, really. So many people have great ideas. I'd love to see little forums where we come together and we help each other. And
so you'll come to the next Acumen meeting and motivate some people to take some action?
Yeah, well, I want to see action before the meeting, actually.
Yeah, okay.
That's fair. Well, it's really exciting, Kevin, to sit with you also and to think about what you're doing and what you represent and how you're paying it forward. And I want to say that I think we need entrepreneurs, but we also need people who are not entrepreneurs. And that's where I think the chapter can play such an important role. That what I'm so blown away by is that we've got literally 5,000 chapter members around the world now who have day jobs. Sometimes it feels like they forget they have day jobs because they're doing so much work on behalf of Acumen and the work that we're trying to do globally. And to say that is humbling. It's like, sounds trite. And so the thought or the recommendation or the dream that I would have is for the chapter members, and Vancouver is really the super chapter. We always point to Vancouver as like the coolest place on the planet where people are doing the best work. We've already hired 3 chapter members. You know, it's a talent pool for us. You raise money, you build intellectual content, you're standing pushing the conversation around moral leadership. I would say there are opportunities, if video and videography is something that you do really well, then use it to be the storytellers. Take the manifesto and turn it into a story on video that can go around the world. If it is around creating content, either help us with our online and tell us what works and what doesn't, or give us courses that we should be developing, or take it to teach kids in the schools here. One of our fellows in Nairobi has taken our online courses to 50 schools that have junior achievement, which I know you've worked with, to teach those young high school students the courses. Yeah. It's really seeing all these things as touch points, then letting the work teach you so that you can teach us. Because that's the way this stuff starts to really change, and who knows what it leads to.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, I have been so excited for today, and I'm sad that it's over. It's been so excited to meet you, Jacqueline, and of course, Kevin. I know hopefully we'll keep a relationship going with those ideas, but really, the work you're both doing is profound, and I can't wait to start telling stories about Detroit for you. And, you know, I'm thrilled that Vancouver has held that place for you because to be a Vancouverite, I've grown up here, born and raised, and then I left for 22 years, and I'm back, and the left coast, really, it's a pretty great place to be, so I'm glad we're helping you.
Well, we were talking a little bit about Vancouver being a bit of a hot spot, and I wasn't sure, is that just because of the friends that I have and hang out with here, or is it really that? So to hear you say that coming from outside about this city, that's something I think we can be really proud of and keep breathing into. Like, there's so much energy here around change and entrepreneurship.
And the world watches. Our Tokyo chapter was so inspired by the Vancouver chapter that there was actually, you know, real conversation back and forth. And so we hold it up as a model. And that's what the world offers.
Hopefully that means that you'll be coming back again.
I will definitely be coming back.
We would love to welcome you back. And thank you so much for your time, both of you. I know you've got a very busy schedule.
Thank you. But the real thanks goes to the chapter.
Yeah, and
so I just want to say
done
thank
a great
you.
job. So thank you.
What a captivating audience. Thank you guys so much for being here. Just a few thank yous as well to our photographer, to our videographer, to Radius, which is a social venture incubator out at SFU. Thank you for the space today and helping us kind of set this up so that we could all be here in this great location. Thank you to Kevin and Jacqueline and Sharon for sharing your energy and your stories today. It was super inspiring and great for me to hear it. To Jacqueline's point about storytelling and empathy, there's this great exercise that you get to do if you take the Acumen Essentials course. And I know it was based off of an exercise that the Global Fellows get to do. And you're asked to go out into your community, into maybe a low-income area or somewhere you've never been before, and just spend time getting to know the place, getting to understand it, and going outside of your comfort zone. And I did this exercise a year ago when I took the course for the first time. And I went to Pigeon Park, which is in the downtown east side, and I just sat on a Sunday morning when they have their markets, and I sat with a man who's a painter, and I just said, you know, what are you doing? Why are you selling your paintings here? He's like, well, I'm from a low-income background too, but I'm not the lowest of the low income. You know, I have a lot, and I have a lot to give, and I think that people need beautiful things in their homes. And so I sell paintings, I replicate master painters, and I sell them for $10 because that's what these people can afford, because I want them to have something beautiful in their houses. So there's great stories that come from our community. You're all a part of those stories. So thank you for being here today. I invite you to connect with our chapter more. Everyone who's got one of these awesome name tags can answer your questions about ways you can get involved with us or connect with us or talk to us and come out to some of our events. So we are on a tight timeline, so there won't be too much time for questions after, but do connect with anyone with a name tag. And thank you for being here today.